What if I told you guys that Amazon, the company that delivers your packages, plays your favorite shows on TV, controls half of the internet, used more water in 2021 than 1 million American households? And on top of that, this great company that services you every single day, they lied about it. They lied to the American public about how much water they were using, and it was intentional. According to a leaked memo that was obtained by The Guardian about a week ago, Amazon Web Services actually planned on concealing the true extent of its water use. They wanted to conceal it for optics. The document laid out this disclosure strategy that would show the public only what they considered to be primary water use. That is the water used directly in cooling their servers and all these data centers. But then they wanted to conceal the secondary water use, which is used for creating electricity to run their facilities. So basically, in plain English, what they were doing was they were cherry picking their numbers so that for optics to the public. These data centers, they use a lot of water, but it's not as much as everybody thinks. It's actually less. We're doing a good job at water conservation. Don't worry about one of our Amazon data centers coming into a local town near you. Internally, Amazon estimates show approximately 105 billion gallons of water used in 2021. That's basically enough water to supply 1 million American households for an entire year. According to Amazon, of course, when this came out, they were like, oh, well, this is old information. It's from 2021. By 2030, we're going to be water neutral. Somehow. We don't know how yet, but maybe we'll create H2O. But we'll be neutral. Don't worry about what we're doing here. We lied to you with good intentions. But while the Amazon PR team is working on slogans like water neutral by 2030, data centers are popping up across the US, specifically in the heartland of our country, daily. In the first half of this year, 2025, over 5 gigawatts data centers. Guys, that's the largest data center expansion in history. And I realize it's a growing industry, so it's going to get even larger. Nothing to worry about here. They'll lie to you about the water they use. What I think is scary about this is we talk about food security, we talk about all of these issues that we have in this country. We talk about drought, farmers not being able to water their crops, and yet a lot of these data centers are going into some of these areas. They're going into these areas in our heartland where they're using a significant amount of water, a huge amount of water. Enough water just by Amazon alone. This isn't including Google, this isn't including the United States government. Just Amazon alone used enough water to take care of 1 million American households for 1 year. This water is coming from the same aquifers, the same rivers, the same sources that our farmers are dependent on to water their crops, which most of them have been cut off from watering their crops in a lot of places. Many of you have noticed that we keep wearing these leather patch hats that say defend the right to farm on them. These leather patch hats support our nonprofit, Meet My Neighbor Productions. You can get your hat at Yanasa Trading Co. and help us defend the right to farm through education, outreach, and, as we've been doing over the last couple of years, farm relief efforts. So get your leather patch hat and let others know that you defend the right to farm. So the more that we build out these data centers, it's pretty reasonable to assume that farmers are going to be irrigating less because they have to share water with data. And the consumer is going to pay more at the grocery store because there's less food being created, unless we start importing it from Argentina. A lot of these data centers, this is all economics, a data center provides more jobs than, a farm or a ranch does. And so the reality is when a new big data center rolls into town, a lot of times it's very secretive. People don't really know a whole lot about the plans until it's far too late to stop it. But when these data centers roll into town, they are given water rights and all sorts of things from the governments because they're creating jobs. They're creating economic growth. The economic growth isn't going to do much for them if they don't have any water left. They don't think about that. They just think about the money, how much money's coming in there. And so they basically sell out farmers and ranchers under the bus. We can get more jobs from a data center in Des Moines than we can from some farmer. Even air-cooled data centers have a huge water footprint. because they depend on these electrical facilities to feed their data centers, which require this huge water footprint. And that's a lot of what Amazon lied about. But that water that Amazon is lying about is being taken from irrigation sources. You know, water is kind of the lifeblood of agriculture, which is the lifeblood of this entire country. When unchecked data center growth takes off, when companies are lying about the amount of water that they're using, it's a transfusion that's happening in the heartland of America that could run farmers dry. Trust me, Amazon, honesty is always the best policy here. I just came up with a new slogan for your PR team if you could figure out a way to turn it around. Long term, when we start seeing a lot of our water resources going to this, what you're going to start seeing is a decrease in irrigation, a decrease in yields, much higher pumping costs because they're going to have to go deeper, they're going to have to go further. And all of that translates into higher consumer prices at the grocery store. Corporations are hiding the data from the public. Public accountability is huge. Public accountability is how, is what puts pressure on legislators to make the right decisions. There can't be public accountability if the companies that are doing this stuff are lying about it. I think that anytime one of these data centers is coming into a community, they need a full footprint water disclosure that says this is how much water we're going to be using, not just for cooling, but also for electricity generation. I think when there are droughts, they need some sort of drought mode reduced cooling, even if that means that they've got to shut down part of their servers, because these are going into areas that have sensitive water issues. They need to start using recycled or reclaimed water. I don't know. Bill Gates was drinking water out of a thing that cleaned water from people's urine. Why not use that water for these data centers? Why not use sewage water, reclaimed sewage water for data centers? And I also think that they need to have no impairment clauses in the heartland of our country where these things are going to protect the water rights of our food supply. If they do cause harm to our food supply, you can live without data, you cannot live without food. I can tell you that from experience. I think people need to remember that this whole data cloud thing isn't something that's just floating up in the air. It's right here on the ground. It's on the ground and it's impacting farmers and ranchers across this country every single day. The power line corridors that are feeding these things are impacting landowners across this country every single day. It's not some cloud. It's right here on the ground. If we ignore things like how much water they're using, we are putting our entire food system at risk. We're putting our entire American agriculture culture at risk, all in the names of data and jobs. Anyway, guys, I thought this was an interesting story because a lot of people give me a hard time about how much of a hard time I give data centers. And so for it to come out that basically these data centers are intentionally not disclosing how much water they're using, so we don't actually know the impact that they're having. And it turns out that the water that they're using is substantially higher than what they're disclosing. This is a real concern, and I think that we should all be concerned about it, and I will keep reporting on it. I recognize that we all use this technology. I recognize that everybody at this point in time uses some sort of artificial intelligence. Do a Google search, one of the search results is always Google AI. But before we get too excited about all this technology and all of this growth, I think that we really need to step back and take a look at what it could cost us. And we can't get that picture when tech companies continue to get away with lying to the public.
Ancient eras and natural selection have refined and tailored pristine fibers with the resilience for today's days. Evolving beyond the last ice age, bison wool is nature's most dependable activewear. Buffalo Wool Company, 100% proven by nature, 100% American-made.
Check out the Buffalo Wool Company collection at yanasatradingco.com.